Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, muchas gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video to help support the message. Gracias. Well, everyone, this one's gonna circle around mostly two vatos, right? That at one point you could say they had a lot of juice, but they turned out to be like most, right? There's a lot of camaradas, to say it like that, that at one point had a lot of respect, from the Pilis when everything was still slammed down, and unfortunately they abused it. And it just goes to how everybody refers to, oh yeah, that's my Pili, or you know, unfortunately, or most of the time, should I say, they start attacking their own neighborhood. But it's gonna circle around mostly Turi from VNE. I spoken on him. I believe mostly on the who he had, and I don't know where how he just walked off and went into the debriefing program. Right? He said he was tired, but it was because everything had hit the fence. There's a big difference. But he had been validated since the 90s. I couldn't really give you an exact time, but he had been back there for a while. He debriefed around 2007. But the first time I met this vato was again when I was back in Tehachapi, when I was getting ready to hit the 180 on B yard for for Tio Chino. There was orders there already, even from T, right? But they got implemented more so when Chino took over. And it was basically because, there was a few individuals that had gotten kicked down on that inactive program on the yard. The main individual was Güero that had the yard, right, as I told before. But the son-in-law of Tio was Joker from B&E, you know, and I had heard stories about Joker, from close to Pepino, but anyways, I remember they didn't like the fact that I went out there and basically called them out and had them step down, even though it never went into play because they would end up snitching on me straight up. And when I went back, I reported everything to Chino, and at first it was all gold time, right? Till they started blessing him with Negra, then it was all forgotten. But nevertheless, when I left Tehachapi, I hit Corcoran. I said it before. I thought I was gonna have a lot of issues when it came to Artie, cause I helped Terco out, and they were in an open war, in a few spots. Terco wasn't that one, uh, giving up his gente or his territory towards Artie. But I never had anything, never even mentioned it. On the contrary, got there, introduced myself, put myself in this position, and you know, I got given responsibilities right away. But you know, I was still in touch with Raul at this moment, and there was an issue being pressed on me by Turi, and it was behind Joker. They weren't happy that I got out, and I basically, when he tried to butt in and told him basically to shut up, that I had some messages for him too from Tio Chino, and it had to do with Tio Chino's daughter, right? And he just got all quiet after they told on me straight up. After a while, I think they got all comfortable and he started pressing an agenda against me. Which is cool. It's part of what it was then. You do anything for a pili, there's gonna be other camaradas that are gonna try to step on you. And that's a fact. Because they feel they get over on somebody working for a pili, it's gonna boost them in the sense of power, which is not the case. But anyways, in Corcoran, it was a back and forth, right? The one really helping me with this was Raul, and basically Turi was speaking up on behalf of Joker, but he was speaking up like if I had crossings with them in any sense, right? For example, with the issue in Ironwood, again, I can glorify about the things I done, but there was an individual, Biggs or something to that effect from VNE that got there, and he probably thought, I don't know what he thought, me being from Northern California, or just he probably thought I was wet behind the ears, right? Didn't do things correctly. But this individual got there, and I don't know what he had done. I sincerely don't know, right? But he had been up there in the bay, when he was sent out to Ironwood, the kite had already hit with us, you know, and it was basically, hey, when Biggs from B&E gets there, whack him. He has to bounce. So whenever this happened, I always asked, hey, does he conversate with the Pili? You know, and I do it because I was never out to hurt camaradas. I did a lot of shady stuff, but overall, I never like to throw camaradas into the wolves' den, right? There's a gang of camaradas willing to earn their bones, get in the mix of things and you know, have their name reach up there, which I understand that completely, I thought like that in the beginning, and but I never did it. So if they told me that, yeah, I would personally do it, right? I once mentioned it's not good to have a celly that's from your neighborhood. At this time, I had my homeboy Creeper with me. He was my celly, and it became an issue because he basically got there and saw how things were being run. If you were in touch with the Pili, you were being allowed to do your thing and respond to your Pili, just show respect to the casa, right? And I was playing it off till I verified some things, right? And when everything came that I needed, I basically went in the cell, grabbed my boxes, I packed my property, at least some, important pictures, stuff like that. And I told myself, make sure this goes there. Hey, fool, this. Send it out to the jefita, and put on my state blues, state boots, and I went out there, and I caught him at the white pile. Needless to say, I was just supposed to hit him. It wasn't like, hey, take his wing type of thing. So I did so. It was just one of the moments where trying to do a pull up, right? And I caught him when he was pulling up, and you know, on the side where he was picking up strength, and you can imagine how that ripped, right? But anyways, got him a few more times, and yeah, I took off. I took off because it just happened to be in line. Again, I was in 3 blocks, so I had to go across the field. I went in. My homeboy was in the shower, so I just, jumped in the shower before even the alarm hit. And anyways, I know that from that moment they had my name up there. And this individual, like I said, went back with Smokey, Sanchez, and he was trying to say that that was a wrong call. He was trying to input that I didn't do my homework correctly, that there was no such call made on his homeboy, and that I should be corrected. In so many words, right? And again, Raul was helping me with this, but the one that really stepped up was Terco. Terco's the one that said, "What you mean? I sent that order. I cleared everything. So what's the issue here?" So everything was left alone. And again, I know, Palomita, Santa, or whatever, or I wasn't at that moment, right? And after this happened, I started pressing the agenda against Joker, because let me just say they were doing a lot of wrong in Tehachapi. I dismissed it because I was told so then by Tio Chino, and I dismissed it, but I started pressing the issue. I brought up all the issues. They got verified by a few homies that were trusted, like Toro from Cherryville, Ocho, well, a bunch of homies, right, that were trusted with other Pilis. So Joker from VNE would end up getting whacked, and that would really tick off Turi even more, because I was his older homeboy. He had over 30 years. He was older, right? He had over 30 years of sitting down, of doing things for them, and you know, how could I? Just how could I? But what they were mentioning to him, who was helping me push, and it was. I'll just say it wasn't just Raul. Again, I'm not gonna glorify him, none of that. But the point of the story is he left it alone. Somebody up there in the bay say, "Hey, leave it alone, or you're gonna lose." Again, he worked under many Pilis, right? I don't know which one was the one that told him, but as I got up there, T told me he got given the warning, just leave it alone, because you don't even know. Just leave it alone, or you're gonna lose. Needless to say, I did my Corcoran time, picked up my case, went up to the bay, and as I went up there, this is how hypocrite it is, right? The game is. I go up there, I get this on my peel, and hey, Chino, mucho gusto. It's finally great to have you amongst the gente and, all this BS. You can't be disrespectful. You can't be a warrior behind a door or none of that. So I answer like, hey, es un placer. I'm here para lo que se ocupe. Gracias, and I left it at that because it could be used against you as well. But anyways, within time, we started VNE, but we were doing things about the homie from VNE, which I personally done time with in Tehachapi, and that's a good dude right there. For those that know Boxer, he has little freckles on his face. He's a he was a hog at handball, and he was a good dude. As we're doing things with Boxer, though, at this time, like in a group type of thing, right? Again, I was nobody. I was just the means to plug up, but it was amongst Danny from Hazard, Night Out from Artesia and Terco. So as we're doing this thing, it starts becoming an issue. You know, it came out, right? This is around 2006, around there as by boxers, the issue starts being pressed. Hey, there's this dude named Turi, older cat, that he's representing, the Pili from White Fans, Wolfie or Playboy, whatever you want to call him at that time. But anyways, he's out here and he picked up the respects. So I play dumb, you know, because in the snake world, you pick up, you have to be one too. Like I said, I'm not playing an innocent part at all, right? But anyways, it came out to light that basically the Pili, from White Fence was asking him, "Hey, I want $500 a month out of respect from the neighborhood, right?" This fool's asking for 3,000 because supposedly there was rumors that they were slinging out there that like that much, which there was, but what he didn't know, that Night Out and Danny Boy were blessing Boxer with the permission, you know, and it was none of his business. So again, I picked up enough evidence and presented it, to Terco, Night Out, Danny Boy, and it came down that, we're going to sleep him. We're going to sleep him till someone's able to get to him because mostly everybody was already single cell, right? And this dude, there was going to be another opportunity to have the step down program, and they were going to try to have him come out to yard, right? Well, that was the plan. But it's how them weenies work, though. They tend to see it. I think they start noticing through they're doing something and it's running smooth. Nobody's saying nothing directly to him, and all of a sudden, someone's voice changes, and we're just so used to paying attention to the little things in the shoe that you know, he would end up checking in. Of course, when he checked in, it wasn't his fault. It was all chaos, right? Pili going after Pilis, he had enough, or it was politics. It was always something, but it was never because he was a snake. And the reason I tell you this, because even when he went to the debriefing, it took a while for everyone that was underneath him to find out. They were still sending him money. He was still working his own homeboys. You know, eventually the story I told about Boxer will play out. And I'm not gonna say I was the one that made it happen to push against Duty because he had more antiquity, had a lot more Jews, right? And well, at least that's what he thought, you know. And at the end of the day, everything played out. For example, he had gotten validated over BS. I got validated for a reason. I hit the bay with a good reason, right? And that's kind of what made me stay afloat. Plus, like I said, I was doing movidas with numerous appeals, right? At least in the sense of plugging them out. The making feria, that's a whole different story. But the reason why I'm telling this story is because, it's very easy for an individual that went through the system to run drag on his own homeboys, to keep hurting their own neighborhood. You see, when somebody really loves their neighborhood, they should always be aware of their actions. Sometimes the best thing is to step back from your neighborhood, right? To protect your homies, not work them, trying to get every little bit of whatever they got going on. And I say this because there's a lot of it right now, the speech of, oh, I went through the debriefing program, but I only told them myself. Oh, and it wasn't my fault I went there. I only told the guard, hey, I'm scared. I need to get out of here. I'll tell you everything you need to know. But you're not scared. And then once you get back there, you become an opera singer, right? You you sing with your gut about everything. But at the same time, you're still trying to hurt your neighborhood. So I guess this is a cautionary tale, just because you got a homeboy that for many years he did a lot of good, stayed solid, was under good people. It's always good to see his actions for what they are. Don't ever forget Southsiders, camaradas, every you have the title or to ask and to be told. You know, that's end of the day, the ones that hold the power are the Pilis. The mediators, like I've stated many times, that's what I was just the buffer zone. I'm just a camarada just like anybody else. So if that camarada comes and tells you, hey, this has to get done, ooh, okay, cool. I just need you to go ahead and send me a one time with a Pili putting his stamp on it, you know, and that's to protect myself. You want me to push for you out here for the Pili? That's cool. I'm with it, but it ain't gonna be a lo loco, right? You have that right. Again, don't allow people to get into your head and be smart, stay above everything. Again, I'm on here simply to put that in. Look, you'll be surprised. I was surprised so many times in my walk, you could say, that I heard from older homies, senores, so many things. And at the moment, it was like, you know, I just heard it and kept on pushing. But when that situation present itself, you'd be surprised how you can foresee it. That's the message. I'm sorry if I don't make a lot of good sense. It's real late. I was gonna wait till the morning to record this. But at the end of the day, that's all what prison is. It's camaradas and camaradas from the for hoping to impress an individual that only claims he could tell Sureños what to do and how to do it, but not be part of the faction. So be trucha. There's ways around all that. Again, I'm not here to spread poison. I'm here simply to tell you, stay true to your neighborhood, to those friends that have always been with you, that real well they will never let you down, to yourself, most of all to your family. Again, do forgive me if it's kind of late and I'm not myself. I hope this makes sense a little bit.